Okay, morning traders. Let me know if I'm coming through loud and clear. Make sure we're all good. Good to go. Okay, thanks for joining me. Welcome to TradeSetup. Hey Nathan, Jason. Hope we're well. So I was just that's typical, isn't it? Just watching this Dow. This is something we sent out this morning, just from levels to watch, looking for that lower high. Now I went short twice, stopped about 10 and just made about 40, and it's going to continue to push down. I thought I'd better close it before we start chatting. Otherwise I forget all about it. Going well. So that's some levels we're just looking at. Bit of a squeeze. We expect a bit of a squeeze on this uptrend. A bit of a spike into the close there on the US on the Dow, and then just to expect a bit of a squeeze lower, even if it's going to longer term, excuse me, continue up. We're expecting a bit of a pullback, just a squeeze. Maybe we'll retest down to 686, 24,686, and start to hold. We'll see how we go, but yeah, it just needs to put some people on the sidelines, which it seems to be doing now. It was trying to get up, and you could see these two candles. So it was probably a preemptive short. I was looking for a short off the MAs there, short there, closed out the next one when it didn't do anything. It just continued to pop higher. Actually, this green candle. And as that started to hold, short on the way down, as that started to expand on the 5-minute chart, it was about 70, 77, I think we got, and out around here, 47. So handy, but it's still finding a bit of weakness, but this is the kind of session where you get the chop. Okay, so you just got to be careful. It starts to chop. It'll probably take out this low, then turn around and reject, take out a few of these candles back up to the highs, maybe retest, fail up at this 800 level, and then go back down. So it's just there to churn people around. Okay, at the moment, until it starts to pick a direction, which may start to happen when the Asian session starts to open. Now this is the Hang Seng. That's the two levels we're more concerned about. That's close, I think, of at 6 o'clock at around 24,224. Now it's obviously up from there, but that's aftermarket. That's your CFD pricing rather than your futures pricing, which will kick off again at 11:15 Sydney time. And then you've got the highs up here. I think it was the highs just coming into the close. So you've got a resistance zone through 24,340, which it could just back off. We may spike through, retest, and if we get a lower high, if it spikes through and fails pretty quickly, you'd be looking for that lower high, because you're looking for that little pop up. That's going to trigger a few stops, buy stops, and then turn around and squeeze them back out. And you probably get a bit of a downside move where it's just going to flush out some buys, because it's still got some work to do to work off here. It's got tested down that level previously, retested, I think it was overnight, and then bounced off. It doesn't mean this is going to hold. It doesn't mean it's just going to roll over and retest. It could just keep going straight back up. But I'm looking for a bit of a spike. So it needs to, again, the market needs to look with liquidity, put some people back on the sidelines, come back again, trigger some entries, trigger some stops, all that sort of stuff until it starts to pick a direction. Now the SPY will be open in about 5 minutes. The SPY is notoriously choppy on the open, and we saw that yesterday. That was not the open. We got the open. The open somewhere around here. Anyway, we won't worry about that. Notoriously chopping, so you'd expect that SPY to whip up and down just to flush people out from overnight before it starts to reset. It'd be interesting to see how it goes today, considering we're on the 1st of July. So any of the argy-bargy shenanigans from the previous session, whether it's going to be over and we're going to flush lower, who knows? But we'll just keep an eye on those. Here, we're going to get onto the Dow, so the movement of the Dow. You can see this level longer term. If we can get onto the Dow index, that's the rising support. We had our confluence we spoke about here. Go away, come on. Move, there you go. Confluence we spoke about here at that support level, and it's bounced. Now, that sort of rally into the close, okay, it looks good, but it could just be a bit of a flush. It's obviously a level. You're going to flush some people out, and it could roll over from there. We don't know. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes tonight, or whether we just keep jamming up into this resistance zone. Now, the markets, every news outlets you keep reading, all talking about higher coronaviruses. People were concerned about that, the increase in concern, but the market's not showing it. The markets are still going up. They're still addicted to the stimulus. Okay, so as long as that continues to be talked about, the easiest way is up at the moment. There's still some buyers out there happy to push it higher, but again, coming to the end of the quarter, bit of window dressing into the end of the quarter, which happens all the time. It'll be interesting to see now that that's done and dusted. Are we going to continue to march up, or are we going to start to get some more chop, more volatility coming to the market? Because now you'd be looking at earnings. Anything positive in earnings, I would expect it's been factored in. If it hasn't, it's pretty crazy because the market's had a massive bounce last quarter. So there, you would expect they're factored in. Now, it's going to be the shocks to the downside, which I think could really be cause for concern. But again, this market could keep jamming higher until that happens. And obviously, what if you've got elections coming up? So there's quite a few headwinds I would expect, but the market might be sort of just chopping around between bid and offer, all right, until it starts to find more of a direction. At the moment, it's held down at on the Dow anyway, 26,500, and you got support now. If that starts to get tested, if we get push up and start to get tested here and break that rising support, then there could be a bit more concern on the downside that could be coming. Okay, so the S&P's, like we said, that's broken that rising channel, which is not a good sign overall, but it's still nothing to say that we can't head down. We brought in some bears and flush them straight back out of the action. I mean, like I said, the market needs to do that time and time again. And your key, there we go, key support's down around here. All right, so I mean, that looks a bit messy. Sorry about that. I'll just get rid of that. Just move that. We're at that same sort of level. So same sort of price action, okay? That we've been watching for a while. So it'll be interesting to see, like I said, it's jammed up here. Positive close, which you would expect in the quarter, whether they start to hedge into the futures market, which means that the Dow is going to head lower, which it is at the moment. Whether they're hedging there and we gap down on the open tonight and then have a bit of a sell-off, yet to be seen. So two things to keep an eye on. US dollar backed away. It rallied through the European session, pretty much 9:30, just after the open. I think numbers come out at 10:30, which weren't too bad. You've got employment data out. Well, there's employment data out, I think, tonight. Unemployment data out tonight, but it's not the major one. The major one's on Friday, payrolls. Okay, so there's some numbers that started to come out a few days earlier, I think, trying to take the limelight, but all right, we're still good. That's better. Yep, I think that's, I've got the phone hooked up to sound died. Yeah, that's just the phone, some phone call. But anyway, good to go. So we've got US dollar, it perked up into this resistance zone, and then you can see that was getting held, okay, into the US close, and they wanted to dump it, obviously. Dumping it down, not a bad sign. Obviously, it was supporting, weaker US dollar supports your commodities. We got gold rallied, which is good. We got copper, it just took off. Copper's looking really strong, which is a good sign for equity markets, high demand, good support, especially if the US dollar continues lower from here. But ultimately, it's still stuck in this range, 97.13 on the index, up to 97.70. It could chop around there. And then, if we get another rally up through here, you might find, or you will get pressure on the dollar. Golds and commodities again. So it's still a bit choppy. The longer we consolidate around here, this level, the higher I'm believing that we could get back up and through. But again, a higher dollar depends on what's happening with equities. Yeah, it's going to be a bit of a sell-off, all that sort of momentum. But either way, momentum on the downside has run out of steam a bit into that support. So there could be another push-up, retest of these highs, but we'll just have to see. So that's what triggered the gold. Now, excuse me again, gold, we were talking about this yesterday, it looked like a screaming buy. Now the gold, time and time again, will flush and then go. Okay, and you've got, I've got it here, levels that are flushed out. So we got up, that would have dragged up once you get up into this resistance off these higher lows, and this would have dragged in quite a few buyers. You can see holding higher lows. I'll just make that a bit bigger. That's dragged in a few buyers and push up there. They would have jumped into the action, expecting that push through, and it's turned around and stopped them straight back out again before it turned around and got, they were proven right, and the market's just rallied. So the market will do that again, and it makes it hard to trade, because if you're looking to get in, there's going to be times when it's just going to go. I mean, it flushed previously. You can see this move down, flushed and rallied. okay, flushed and rallied. So if you're sort of sticking by that theory, it's going to flush and rally, and if it starts to go up, I'll be dropping down some time frames to really, if you want to jump in before a flush, just look to lower your time frames to make it a bit faster. That just means you're taking a lesser risk. And if you're right and it continues on, great. And if it's wrong and you're looking for that flush, you're not going to take much risk on it, and you can watch the flush and then see if it picks up again on gold. So either way, this looks like it, probably flush on the upside and then turn around and come screaming down later on. But again, that's going to depend on the US dollar. I want to look at copper. Another thing we've been watching closely, look at the strength that's coming to copper. And again, that's conducive, a higher price is conducive to more risk-on sentiment into the equity markets, continued risk-on sentiment. Now, the trend is up, the easiest movement's up at the moment, which is fine. So my biggest concern is that everyone gets on side long. The move down could be hard and fast, and you may not see it coming. It's just trying to, I do believe that we're going to get a bit of sell-off in equities. I just feel that we need to. In the longer term, I don't believe in V-shaped recoveries, even V-shaped rallies. I don't think something can go spike up with at least some sort of lower high coming put in place before we see lower prices. It's the same. So these are the sorts of things. If you're heading up, I don't believe in that sort of recovery. And then okay, everything's rosy again, because that sort of flush we saw, even though it's bounced back and the market's positive again, there's a lot of damage done to the US, where there's a lot of money being pumped into the system, a lot of cash, a lot of debt has been increased, company debt. There's all these sorts of problems that haven't filtered through yet. So I don't see how we can. It's the same with the GFC, which we've spoken about many times before. GFC, then big bounce, everyone was getting bullish again, and then boom, we come down and just dumped on the market later on. So we'll see. Like I said, we come up here, I would expect if the cracks start to appear, it's going to come screaming down hard and fast. Now, I just want to go over, I won't look at the currency, just quickly look at the Aussie. There's a bit of a link. Aussie's just chop fest at the moment. You can see it's pushed down. We're looking for weakness off here, which came into the market, and it's just been buoyed. Okay, so it's been supported through here, across these lows. It's flushed it out, turned around and went straight up and through. So that was a bit of a setup. I think a bit of a trap more than anything else. Took out these lows, trapped them in, held a high low, and we rallied straight up and through these highs, through the resistance. So at the moment, if we're going to build a lower high here, it's going to be hard, because I would expect it to be consolidating here and go. But instead, it's flushed out the lows. So it's cleaned out both sides of the market. So anyone that's been buying or selling in here has been cleaned out. If you're selling in here, you're thinking it's great, selling up near these highs, you were great, especially when you got that break and you turn around and been stopped straight out. Now, if you're buying off these lows, you've been stopped out earlier. So either way, a lot of the traders have been put back on the sidelines with that whip, from lows to high. So it'll be interesting to see if we can actually hold here and start to hold a higher level and push back up to 70.50, or at least to 70, 69.80 or so, these highs. Or are we going to just hold lower high? You've got some buyers looking, okay, now we've broken that, we're going up, and turn around and squeeze them back out. But either way, it's very, very choppy, and it's a tricky Aussie at the moment. The euro is a bit the same. We've got this support line, bank straight back up, took out this resistance. So for now, you potentially got something on the short side. If this can hold, it has to hold. These sort of minor highs here, there's potential for a short trade, and your risk just above. Okay, and then looking back down to these lows at 112. So selling on sort of a break of 12.25 thereabouts, with your risk above 12.40 thereabouts, 15 pip, and looking for 30 or so on the downside. But we'll keep an eye. Now, cryptos, I just want to touch on that before we finish. Crypto enthusiast, it's looking, that to me looks kind of bullish, the way it's rejected here and here, kind of bullish. But previously it's done the similar type of action. It's got bullish and then turn around and come straight back down again. So it's going to be whippy if it's the case. And if you don't get a move hard and fast, you'd be out pretty quick. If we got something like this and we come back, if we didn't get that kind of action and we sort of popped up into these highs, for instance, you just got flushed out these highs here and you just take that down a bit. You got to here instead, I'll be concerned that we're going to whip back straight back down and come back down to potentially test this support at 9,050. Okay. So, but either way, that's looking kind of bullish. I was expecting, if you go back to the daily, the market's been edging lower. I'm more bearish from the daily, but there could be some short-term strength to pop up to 97, 96, thereabouts. Okay, so just keep an eye on that. I mean, it could be, I would still expect it to be kind of a short trade, a few hundred points, a few $100 in that. So that could be a goer, and just making sure you got really tight risk. Otherwise, I still believe that the Bitcoin on the daily charts is going to head south a bit better. Once we take out these lows. So there's obviously we've got both sides covered there, and the same with Ethereum. Really, I think Ethereum is showing some daily weakness, but there could be a bit of a pop up if you're looking at the 30-minute chart. Same sort of thing. You got highs that grind lower, and this rejection here and again in here. It's not a bad thing. If you start to pop up through that high, you could go long with your stops below. That's the way I'd be attacking that at this stage. And if it doesn't go, if you don't get up to these highs that trigger at least 1-to-1, then you probably bail pretty quickly. All right, that's all I wanted to cover for today. All the best. Now, just remember, if you do like what you hear, it'd be great if you can leave us a like on the channel. Follow us on, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're also on Twitter, the Trade Setup, and all the other bits and pieces. So feel free to jump on our website and check us out, www.tradesetup.com.au. And if you have any questions, send us an email to support@tradesetup.com.au. All right, guys, enjoy your day, and we'll speak to you again tomorrow.